2019 was a fantastic year for gaming. We got titles like RE2 Remake, Devil May Cry 5, Fire Emblem Three Houses, and Death Stranding, all fantastic games that have managed to stay relevant even after a year since they came out. These games surprised us and left us wanting more and more. Hell, I even learned how to speedrun one of them. And then we have games like Days Gone, which came out on April 26, 2019, to some very, very lukewarm reception, which actually led me to putting this game off for a pretty long time, and I'm sure I'm not the only one who did that. In fact, there's a little subgenre of YouTube videos out there that are dedicated to convincing you to play this game, and I gotta say, they worked. Days Gone is a mixture of everything I love in my games: horror, open world, action, story, and Days Gone offers all of those things, all done and told in the most mundane and boring way I have ever seen in a game. Did I hate Days Gone? No. Did I love Days Gone? No. Which means I have to do the ungodly thing, which is attempt to explain to you why you should or probably shouldn't pick this game up, and I didn't mean to make that sound as confusing as I did, but it reflects how I feel about the game pretty well. You see, Days Gone has a really interesting concept that we're all pretty familiar with, set in a not too distant apocalypse where I guess the world has become overrun by the not zombies, also known as Freakers. Humanity has been decimated by both the Freakers and all the crazy people that decided to just kind of murder everyone too, resulting in a world where small pockets of humanity are forced to live in camps and work together to survive. Now, this concept isn't a new one. We've all heard of a story like this quite a few times now, but Days Gone isn't really priding itself on telling a new story with some interesting twists. In fact, it's more concerned with making this world feel well and truly alive through the eyes of protagonist Deacon St. John. A biker in the pre-apocalypse and a drifter in the post-apocalypse. As a drifter, Deacon makes his way by killing any freakers he sees, killing bounty targets and fighting people who are lost or have been kidnapped, helping each of the camps and gaining access to supplies, which he and his best friend Boozer use to survive. Deacon as a character definitely has some depth to him, and there are a handful of moments that stand out to me as, wow, he's a pretty cool dude. But if you want to talk about generic video game protagonists, we've got a prime candidate right here. Deacon is pretty boring for the vast majority of the game, not really having any discernible character traits other than, I'm a biker, I kill freakers, my wife is dead. Cue the emotional turmoil we find him in. Yes, his wife is dead, and the game spends a lot of time forcing us to grieve right alongside him, forcing us to sit through these drawn-out flashback sequences where you have to walk very slowly while exposition is delivered about how very much in love these two characters are. We get it, you're married. These scenes started off cute, and to be honest, at the beginning they were a nice break from the game. Suddenly in these moments the world has color, and the devs slapped an E and B preset on it to make it look nice and pretty. But these sections are boring as hell, and they happen fairly frequently throughout the game. But what about the game itself? What are you actually doing in this game? Well, as I mentioned before, Deacon does all of this stuff. In fact, you know what this sounds like to me? The perfect recipe for an open world game. Let's break it down. First up, we've got story missions, and to help you figure out the story missions, don't worry, the game tells you exactly how much longer you have till you're done with them. These missions are your standard open world affair that range from stealth missions to escort missions to bike chases, and yeah, they're fine for the most part, though the vast majority of them are very simple and don't shake things up too much. Also, I do just want to quickly clarify how much I hate these stupid little percentage screens though. If I want to know how much of the game's left, I'll just pull out my phone and check. These screens don't serve any purpose. They just pull you out of the game and remind you that, hey, time's almost up, buddy. And if you guys had such a love for these screens, just put them in the pause menu somewhere. I'll look at them, I'll know what I want to know. Anyway, apart from main missions, you'll also be doing three things in particular. First up, we have the Nero checkpoints, which yield a health, stamina, or focus upgrade. This is usually gated behind an exploration puzzle where you need to find fuel for a generator, which then opens the door to the checkpoint. But this also turns on the loudspeakers just outside, which can attract any horde that is nearby. So it actually makes for some interesting moments and forces you to plan accordingly when things don't go to plan. Then you have infected nests, which you need to burn down with Molotovs to kill the freakers in that area. And in my opinion, these are the most fun things to do in the game, since they're treated more like environment puzzles sometimes. You need to get an idea of how the area is mapped out so that you can get out of Dodge when everything goes to hell. As soon as you light up one of these nests, you get freakers pouring out of them, and if you aren't prepared for that, you could get screwed pretty easily. Apart from that, you've got raider outposts that Deacon really doesn't like, and so you have to go in and murder everyone. Whether that's loudly or quietly, that's up to you. After that's done, you can get a bunker, which gives you a little safe house and a save point. But you'll never need to use them, so don't worry about that last part. Now, these outposts aren't really all that fun to do, but that isn't because the idea behind them is bad. They're basically just the Far Cry 3 outpost essentially, but the gameplay on display here just isn't all that impressive. Every gun feels pretty weak, and weirdly enough, enemies are sort of bullet spongy in a weird way. Unless you nail each one with a headshot, some regular grunts are going to take upwards of 5 to 6 shots to kill, meaning the gunplay feels pretty doughy. You also get way too much ammo to work with in this game. Some of the best moments I had in the game were when I had barely any ammo left and I had to figure out how to deal with the outpost the hard way. Which brings us to the stealth aspect, and it doesn't really fare much better than the combat. It's a typical open world stealth gameplay, filled with boring environments and a fairly limited moveset that doesn't really give you much room to experiment. It doesn't help that animations aren't the best either, and everything sort of looks bland when in action. Meleeing enemies isn't very fun either. You essentially just spam the right trigger until they're dead or until they dodge, in which case you press the right bumper and you just do that over and over again. Melee weapons aren't fun to use either. They just don't have that weight, and the animations don't sell me at all. In a game like The Last of Us, each attack feels like it has serious weight behind it and genuine consequence, but in this game it feels more like a wet, limp slap each and every time. But the combat does shine a little bit when fighting one of the many hordes in the game, a pack of dozens of freakers that will all start chasing you as soon as they lay eyes on you. These encounters are thrilling in the early game, and your only option is to run away, but as you gain more and more tools to play with, you can start taking them down, and it feels great when you accomplish that. Though fighting a small group of freakers has the same issues again, where the animations and the sort of tactile feedback from the guns don't really sell me on hitting or shooting these things. And finally, we have to mention the star of the game, the bike. Throughout the game, the main and really only form of transportation is your bike, which you'll need to look after by fixing it up when it's damaged and being sure to find fuel when you start to run out. The bike is actually a really cool part of the game and is a joy to ride, especially on dirt tracks that let you drift all over the place. But the upgrades you can get here are a little disappointing. Instead of making truly meaningful decisions on how you want your bike to behave and react with the world, you can only upgrade your bike linearly. You can't spec it for speed or durability or anything. You can only make it better, and that extra bit of depth would have gone a long way. It also doesn't help that, performance-wise, this game chugs a lot, especially when you ride the bike through some areas. This game easily drops to below 20 FPS, and that's just annoying to deal with. In fact, visually, this game is a little bit of a mess on this front. There are times when this game looks great and really sells the atmosphere and the mood, but then there are tons of moments that pull you out of the experience, like insanely long texture pop-in. In fact, in a few cutscenes, I had textures that just never loaded in, and that made a lot of scenes really weird. This particular department is what has disappointed me so much about this game. Over a year later, and this game still has massive performance issues, and most of the time I wouldn't really let it bother me all that much, but when it's a PS4 exclusive and it runs this badly, even though it's had multiple updates, I'm gonna complain about it. But overall, it honestly isn't all bad. There are some things that I did actually like about this game. Some of the characters are genuinely likable and have a lot of personality to them. The acting is great for the most part, and even though Deacon is a fairly boring character throughout, Sam Witwer sells a lot of the more emotional moments really well. And combat does have a few moments that make you feel like the ultimate biker zombie slaying badass, but these aspects simply don't save this 30+ hour experience from being anything other than mediocre. Days Gone is a game that had a lot of potential. With it being a first-party Sony release, I was hoping that there would be a lot more here to enjoy. But sadly, this game hasn't really got anything to offer you unless you want a fairly mindless open world game, because I'm not gonna lie, sometimes that's just what you need. But I'm gonna give Days Gone a 6 out of 10. It doesn't really do anything particularly well, and the few interesting ideas it brings to the table aren't really enough to earn anything higher. If you were looking to grab this game, look for a sale or get it cheap on eBay. And hey, if there's ever a sequel, I'd be interested in how they would improve the formula that this game sets out.